Hi. So Jill Novak here again with one of my juicy chats. Today I'm speaking to my friend Amy Johnston, who has a business called Amy Johnston Fitness. Ironically enough, Jill Novak Yoga today, talking to Amy Johnston Fitness today. Amy and I have been friends since our kids were children, so they were babies, and have watched each other journey and into developing our own businesses over the years. So lately, on a hike recently, we were discussing just what's going on in our business and what we're learning and what we're growing and understanding. And Amy started talking about the metabolic female and started talking about metabolism in women and aging women. And so much of it started to give me light bulb moments around what I speak about in Ayurveda. So I just wanted to chat with you, Amy, today and ask you questions about that. So can you just give me the Cole's notes on your understanding of this metabolism in the aging female?
Okay, so first of all, I think recently I've just had a lot of women coming to me with this issue of finding that what they're doing now isn't working, or they're just noticing things that they've never noticed before. And my business has always been centered a lot on fat loss. And so they're noticing these things that they've always been doing, and suddenly they're not working, or they're just feeling generally yucky. And so I also sort of feel some of those things as well. And I just wanted to dive a little bit deeper into it and figure out if I could help them. I already kind of knew some things about it and about hormonal changes and stuff, but I really wanted to, I actually needed tools. I need tools to help people and get them something that they can tangibly grab or do, because I'm not somebody who wants to tell people exactly what to eat or exactly how, I just know everyone's so different. And so I just, it's just really listening. Honestly, the biggest thing with this for me, what I've learned is that our bodies are always talking to us. They are always giving us biofeedback. And no matter how much testing you do in a lab or at a doctor, it's not going to really matter if you're not listening to what's really going on, because that's actually the answer.
Yeah.
Is that.
Do you know they say that in Ayurveda, that the first cause of disease is crimes against wisdom, like not listening to your own intelligence. So what are you learning about that in terms of listening to your own intelligence? What are the things that you're supposed to do?
Biofeedbacks? Yeah.
So what are they? You call it biofeedback?
It's biofeedback because your body is giving you, your biology is giving you feedback and insight into actually what is actually physiologically going on with you. So it is really, if you don't want to know about progesterone and estrogen, most people don't really care about that, but it is really, really important to understand that those two things at this point of us aging women are literally the root of some of the ways that we feel. But if you were to go test a woman on day 1 of their cycle and go test them on day 2 and day 3 and day 4, everything's going to be different every day. And then, so not only are they going to have that every month for 30 days, they also go through puberty. They also go through childbearing. And then, so they have a cycle every month. They have other things that affect them just in life, like stressors and stuff like that. And so it's just, we're constantly changing. And so if you can learn to listen, which is the hardest thing to teach people, to what is going on, maybe you can help yourself by understanding that, today you felt, maybe you didn't sleep well for 3 days. Maybe what is that all about? Or maybe you didn't listen to anything about hunger that day. It was all just your head. Like you didn't listen to what your stomach was telling you. Maybe it was growling, or maybe you were really hot, or maybe there's just or you were just tired, or I don't know, you noticing weight. There's so many things that we notice, and females compared to men, they have it kind of easy because their whole life is like this. Their testosterone levels don't change very much throughout they're just even kill. They just keep going. And so we have a lot, and you can picture a woman and she's got all these things around her, picture grocery shopping and kids and work and all these things. And they typically, men don't have that. They get up, they go to work, they come home, they go to bed. It's just, it's so different. And so they have these equal hormones plus an equal, and then we've got like all the hormones and all the outside.
Yeah. And they say that men work on that 24-hour cycle. And then you think about the way our world is designed, and our world is definitely designed on that 24-hour cycle. And I think women have been trying to slot ourselves into that and trying to show up sort of every day of the month.
Yes.
Back with the same energy levels and the same clarity and the 100%. Same ability to focus.
Yeah.
And the fact that our hormones are changing all throughout the month is a factor, that bigger factor than let it.
And society does that to us.
Yeah.
It's not just, it's also because for some reason we think we need to be okay all the time. And so it's super fascinating to me. And I think, obviously the psychology, I mean, you've got like what you want, you've got your physiology, and then you've got, you know, like your brain doesn't care. Like you can tell you can try and like convince yourself, but your physiology, it does what it's going to do. Like that's the thing, you can't really outsmart what. So I think that the key is,
yeah, your body doesn't lie. Your body doesn't lie.
No, it's not lying. But if you're literally always putting that in a drawer, that's really the root cause of how dysfunctional metabolism start. And then they end up getting to be, you know, they can turn into autoimmune diseases. And that's eventually what actually happens to most. And you'll notice most women have autoimmunes compared to men.
Yeah. So the links that you're learning are like, we don't listen. And then we sort of put all of our own, I like how you even said, it's like you're hot, it's you're cold, you didn't sleep. And Ayurveda calls those gunas. And it's like, if you balanced your hot and your cold, or I feel really heavy and lethargic today and like down, or I feel really light and sometimes spinny and all this today. And if you could
estrogen,
if you could balance at that very base physiological response, like balance, oh, I feel thirsty. Oh, okay, I'm going to deal with that. Or I feel tired. Okay, I'm going to deal with that. Or I feel overwhelmed. Okay, I'm going to deal with that. Or I feel like I'm a sloth and I'm sitting on the couch too much. Okay, I'm going to deal with that. Like if we would deal with things on sort of that micro level.
Yeah. And I think it's important to understand that some of those things that you can't control them, put Band-Aids on them.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, sometimes explaining to people, sometimes when I do talk to my clients about what's going on with them, sometimes if I tell them that, they can be like, oh, like that's normal. Like you can't just put it in a drawer. Like you unfortunately you may have, this is happening to you. So, and there might not be a perfect solution to it, but it's happening. Like you can't stop.
You can't pretend it's not happening.
You can't pretend it's not happening. You can't Band-Aid it. But you do need to learn obviously strategies and how to help yourself. So for example, in where my clients come from, most of the time, they're literally like, I do everything to try to lose weight and now nothing's working and I'm tired and I'm stressed. And literally, I just want to go, you got to stop. Like you literally, you're not allowed, like you got to stop. I eat perfect. I'm like, okay, you're going to stop. So, I mean, eventually we get to the point where we're talking about, we do talk about calories because they matter. We talk about closing the gap. So between, cycling through, if you're eating more right now in this season, then you should be exercising more or moving more. It doesn't have to be exercise too. Like, I mean, there's so many aspects to this, Jill. Like there's the non-exercise, just the NEAT, the thermogenesis just from working or walking around or walking to your car. There's food creates that, like all those things that create in your body. And then you may be a person who's creating so much extra stress to your body that's actually having a reverse effect. And
yeah. And that's the piece that's interesting, isn't it? It's like your emotional stress is actually inhibiting your hormonal function in your body.
Right. Because estrogen, if you think of them as two twin sisters, estrogen likes to play. Like estrogen's like, woohoo, let's go. Right. And that's at ovulation. But when you stop that, when that ovulation starts to go away or things start to change, progesterone's always there to check on that sister. Progesterone's always just like, okay, calm down. You might have a baby. You need to maybe eat some food. You're working out too much. And you really, as we go through these hormonal changes, like I said, all through the month, you are going to have all these little feelings. That's the reason. Like, that's the actual cellular reason that's happening. So when you add all these extra external factors on, I want to look good, I want to feel good, I want to sleep good, I want to take care of my kids, I want to go to work, I want to have energy, like all these things, I want to be a good lover, like all these things. When you take that into consideration, it's super challenging when we can't help that eventually that little estrogen happy sister starts to wane. And so it's really important that you work your habits appropriately so that you're not damaging and causing more stress to create all sorts of things that can happen, like with your like with your thyroid and all these things. I mean, they're all related.
You're already dealing with just progesterone, who's already the more reliable, like ordinary, like, like we do things by the book. We would call that the popo in our house.
Yes, like
it's progesterone, like the popo, like, hang on a second, let's do things the way we're supposed to. And so now you've got rid of the fun sister, and that's what's happening in that perimenopause, is the fun sister's showing up a bit less.
Yeah.
So like this, it's funny because the pillars of health in Ayurveda are sleep, nourishment, and then the third one is energy management, and understanding that there's a cycle to this. And the more as women we can understand that if this cycle happens in our bodies, and if we can support ourselves in the different pieces of our cycle, then, and not work against ourselves, because I feel like even we've never been taught this. We've never been taught how to work with our cycle.
And that is exactly what we're learning. So in what I'm doing right now is that's exactly what he's like, nobody knows this stuff. Nobody's even being taught to teach this stuff. And I'm like, I want to teach this stuff. I want people to know.
So what would your big habits be?
So, you could work within your cycle. The first thing you would have to do is, if you're really feeling damaged, like really down, or just like everything's not working, you've probably been doing one of those things where you're eating less and exercising more. The gap is really wide. You're just really causing stress to your already, system
you have to figure out how to nourish yourself better.
You really have to bring that in, and you have to decide whether you're going to decide to eat more and exercise more, but that can go with the cycle. So with your cycle, when you have the playful estrogen around, when it starts, so estrogen is sort of at its lowest, and it starts to creep up before ovulation, right? So your day one, your body actually can have, because progesterone's not there kind of calming you down at that point too. So let's talk about progesterone. So at the first part of your cycle is the part where you're bleeding, typically. If you're still having your cycles, that's actually the time where you can actually go for it. Like your body is more, even though you don't feel like it, it's really weird, but your body at that time, with those hormones being sort of both low, you're more likely to, if you ate like a lot of high fat foods and stuff like that, you're really more likely to burn, like you're more likely to metabolize it. It's when you get into that last half, where that's where you might want to calm down. But that's that's really detailed. Like a lot of people they don't want to be like, oh my God, like
now I have to track my cycle.
I don't really want to do that. So really it's best to just go by like, what were you doing? What wasn't working? What if we just stopped everything? Like, why don't let's just work with just that and see how that goes. Like, what if we just said, you know what? We're going to take all the inflammation away. We're going to eat very little. We are going to just walk. We are going to do very good things like nature, get off the treadmill, get to the trails.
It's almost like you're going to do, instead of like, it's like the opposite of a detox. Like you're talking like, we're going to do some deep replenishment, some deep
self-care,
lots of self-care. We're going to nourish you completely first. And then we're going to play around with figuring this
Yeah.
out.
And then what you can do, because you need to bring everything back down to like, and then you can slowly be like, okay. And you can, and this is life. This is the thing, is it's important to cycle through these things. And it's just like the seasons. And I think we talked about that. Like seasons are a great way to actually do this tool.
Yeah.
Like I always like to say to people, well, it's really nice outside. You know what? You might have been like hibernating all winter and eating a lot. Maybe you were couch potatoing a little bit.
Yeah,
you know
we all are. Like what we do in January at 8 o'clock at night is completely different than what we're starting to do. Like we're starting to be like, let's go outside. You don't say that in January.
Of course. And so that's good.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Follow the seasons, follow the cues of the season. Yeah. That's the second cause of disease in Ayurveda is not following natural rhythm.
Right. Interesting. And that's exactly the same as metabolic effect, is that disease eventually, if you stop following your natural, exactly. It's the same thing.
Yeah. That's what I love about this, is that it's like we're using two different languages, right? You've got a really scientific, a really modern language, and it's saying the same thing as this Ayurveda, which is really like old and not like I love the fact that science
really
understands this stuff. It's fascinating.
Well, and Ayurveda obviously is based on like the oldest, most ancient.
Yeah, you know, they say that it's the oldest practiced healthcare system in the world.
Well, and obviously they're onto something. And this guy, I mean, the reason why his name is Jay Tita. The reason why he did this was because he kept having this. He's a naturopath, and he just having these women, and he was testing them and testing them and testing them, and like, and then he's like, well, this isn't working. Like what this says here on this piece of paper isn't helping. Like he'll look at it and be like, oh, your progesterone is high or whatever, and then but then it didn't align with their biofeedback. They'd be telling him things and it wouldn't align. And so he was like, we need to figure out a way. And so he's like, I want to teach this to women, because really, he's like, what do I know about like having a baby or going through a cycle? And so he's really determined to get this information out there, to help coaches coach and help people, you know, because I think it's we really try to put, especially in fitness where I've come, we try to put everybody in this box. And it's just eye-opening to me that people just, they're just jumping from this person's box to that, you know, like this person says this, so I'm going to do this. And
and that's what's so amazing, is that and I think maybe what if that was like the biggest takeaway of all, is that we all have a unique constitution. We're all in a different place in both our monthly cycle and our life cycle. And those are all contributing factors to sort of the hormones that are being released and moving through our body. And that if we could learn to have a positive relationship with I like how even that you use the word biofeedback, like the feedback coming from your biology. And so, you know, as yoga teachers, like I'll throw out something to people in a yoga class. I'll say, well, listen to your body, you know, and it's like, yeah, fine. That's a nice sentence, but what the hell does it mean? And I think this conversation is like kind of getting into some of the meat and potatoes, what that means.
Well, like, there's one thing. Yeah. So one thing that people don't realize that might be a biofeedback tool is actually aches and pains.
Yeah. Like all the symptoms, like allergies are a sign of I would call it AMA. My holistic nutritionist friend would call it toxins, right? Aches and pains, strain, tension, headaches.
Yeah, anything that's a symptom, and stuff that you probably are shoving in a drawer because you're like, oh, that's just because of this.
I'm just getting old, and this is what happens when you get old.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, we're going to get old, but ultimately nobody wants to have disease.
Yeah. So I love the fact that it just comes back down to, can you listen to your own body, and can we learn to listen to our own bodies?
Yeah, and I think we do try to push. Sometimes we push because we think it is the right thing to do, or even better, it's worked for me before.
Oh, I get that.
That's the biggest, and that's the biggest
Like
pushback.
I used to be able to like just up my workout and down my calories and I would lose weight.
I'm just going to cut carbohydrate. Oh my God. No. Like, like just I definitely get that probably the most is like, yeah, but if I just did this like I did before, I'm like, yeah, but that's obviously, that you're different now. Like we're different.
Different stage of life. Yeah. A different level of hormones, a different level of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ayurveda talks about 3 life cycles, right? Like you have a time of life. So the pitta time of life is like when you're in your adulthood, you are in your cycle. The childhood time of life is probably pre-cycle. And then when you are having your period, you're in that pitta time of life. And then when you kind of go through menopause, there's a shift that happens. And the qualities most dominant in your body go from being like, I'm hot, I'm light, I'm fluid, I'm mobile, to sort of it goes to more like there's a cool, I'm dry, I'm rough, like there's a
right.
I'm less unctuous, I've got less juiciness in me, I'm getting drier in my tendencies, and that's interesting. It's the life cycle of a tree. And if we could think of ourselves like that, like there's this like a spring leaf is all juicy in the spring, and by the time it gets to fall it's a bit more brittle, and you're dealing with a different biology. That leaf has a different biology as we do.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think we talk about it there's an acronym. It's called Is Your Schmeck in Check? And that's like stress, cravings, hunger, energy, schmeck. Did I get it all right? There was one, I missed one, I think. Oh no, the end one is craving. So it's SHMEC. So
say those again.
So schmeck, S. So your stress, your cravings, your hunger. Oh my God, why has M escaped me? I'll think of
probably like metabolism. Oh no.
No, it's not metabolism, and I don't know why it's escaped my brain because I teach
energy, whatever.
Anyways, and well, there's a few. Anyways, those kinds of, even just if I go your heck is in check, that's hunger, energy, and cravings. Those 3 things are the 3 things that I try to get people to think about. Because when you're craving, obviously certain things like sugar and stuff like that, that's a biofeedback, right?
Yeah. That's how Ayurveda talks to us too. They kind of say like, what if every symptom that we would consider symptoms, what if every symptom in your body was your body just kind of elbowing you and just being like, hey, like elbow, can you pay attention to this? Like, I'm just going to make, like, maybe it's just like today I'm snotty. Like I've got lots of snot happening. Like that can be, that's a symptom of something. Or maybe one day it's like you've got itchy eyes. Like I notice in my own body that when I've had a really kind of clean, I call it a clean month in terms of my hydration's been good, my nourishment is good, and my movement has been good. Like how I've moved my body. When those have been good, I don't have any PMS symptoms. And when those have been bad, PMS is like all over the place.
And that's one of the symptoms as well. So sorry, let me get this right for you guys. So sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings.
Mood. Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then all the other things like, and 2 of the major feedback tools are libido.
That's hilarious.
And menses. So those are humongous, of course.
Okay, so hang on. Libido, we all understand as women, because we all understand that we had those years where we had none of it.
That's right. And
so tell me about menses.
Well, menses is just what you just said. That's what made me think of it.
So it's not just the period itself, but it's like the
symptoms, the heaviness, other symptoms like, obviously digestion. I mean, that's a huge one.
Yeah, I mean, that's Ayurveda is like everything to do with Ayurveda cares about digestion.
Digestive function.
Digestion is the be all and end all of everything.
Yeah. And then with regards to exercise, one of the things that is one of the biggest feedback tools for people who really like to exercise a lot is their performance or how they feel when they're doing it. And oftentimes people push past that. And those are the types of things that I think are really hard for people to recognize when they're so used to just going, well, that's just what I do and that's how I feel or whatever. And for example, today I had a massage and I wasn't very good. I could feel that I was extra bad. She's like, what the heck is going on? And I'm like, I need a break. I know I need a break. I 100% know that I literally could take a week off and do nothing.
And that would be the best medicine you could give your body.
I know that. And my body's been telling me that for a while. So I know that personally. It sucks. My job is that I have to do it sometimes, but regardless, I'm going to try to be better this, coming up, because I do find that I am way better at listening, but it also takes practice. And I think for these people, you're not just going to know.
Yeah. I talk about that in terms of like frick, even your iPhone needs to be plugged in, people. Like, at what point do we take our own bodies and go, okay, I got to go plug you in for a while. I got to go stop and plug you back in, whether that is like creating daily practices of rejuvenation. And this is where like, you might not need to sit and meditate cross-legged, but you might need to like unplug and go for a walk in nature. Or you might need to have a bath at night. Or you might create some rules around turning off your digital stimulus and giving yourself some downtime.
Well, because those times, and that's exactly what we talk about, is having a bath, like all those things, because that is the one thing where cortisol. So cortisol is the other really ugly but awesome thing in life. Yeah. Because it, for short periods of time, can do a lot of great things, combined with human growth hormone, combined with estrogen. Like it can mobilize fat like nobody's business. And people love that about cortisol. But the problem is all these other outside factors. And then, so if I get a client that's literally going, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you need to stop working out. Like, I'm like, what's the one thing you can stop? Like,
Ayurveda calls that vata. Like, there's so much vata. There's so much like agitation and energy and that everything's up here, and you need to add heavy. You need to add things that are heavy. Like, you just want to wrap that person in a weighted blanket and like pat them down and like settle them. Go into a bath, settle down.
So yeah, I mean, maybe you can talk on how do you teach people to do that? I mean, that's my biggest thing right now, is trying to figure out how to teach people to let that stuff go. They have to be so ready, right?
Yeah. Like, Ayurveda has 10 habits, and they're like, these 10 habits are rejuvenating. And if you can follow these 10 habits, then these are the 10 habits that teach you to listen. These are the 10 habits that give you biofeedback really well. These are the 10 habits that you can use to help yourself fall back into ease when you feel yourself spinning out of it. And like they're all the old wives' tales. They're like, go to bed early, get up early, eat 3 meals a day, put breath into your body, eat mostly plants. And then Ayurveda has one around oil, like your skin is your biggest detox organ. So get rid of all of the like drugstore products that have tons of chemicals in them, and just put organic, 100% natural oil on your body. And that's a really big one. And then the last one, and I think this is kind of where we're talking about listen to yourself. It's like your 5 senses need to be taken care of. So your sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, or how you are consuming the world. And if you can take care of how you consume the world, those are feedback tools too. Like, when you're in your car sometimes and your body just tells you, turn the radio off, please.
Totally.
And you listen and you turn the radio off, and you can feel, as soon as you turn the radio off, you can hear your whole body go, thank you. Yeah. And so care of the 5 senses is one of the habit tools, and orienting yourself away from stress. I don't know if I've said all 10, but I've said most of them.
I think you did most of them. And I think the other thing is it's hard to teach people not to, I think that I just find people like to Band-Aid things, right? So they'll Band-Aid it with coffee or alcohol. Like we try to do that.
We're in that culture, right? Like on Facebook, where it's like, coffee saves my day, or My wine at night is my,
Wine
yeah.
is cool. I'm a mommy, drinks wine.
Yeah.
I know. It is that there's that too. But
And don't get me wrong.
No, me too. I
Like
love
love
coffee.
both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Amy, can I ask you one more question? So the other, I mean, you've mentioned estrogen, progesterone, cortisol. Is there anything that you're learning around serotonin and melatonin?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, obviously.
Like the sleep hormones, right? Like the serotonin.
Yeah.
That wakes you up in the morning,
yeah,
the
and I
melatonin.
mean, all these are related. I don't
Mhm.
obviously. I mean, the stimulating of tech and all that we all know really does affect those two. Serotonin, they know now, is more in your gut.
That's where it plays into Ayurveda again, because Ayurveda says your gut is your second brain.
Well, and there's actually, thankfully, doctors are now, I think, well, I don't know. I mean, I had a conversation with a doctor not very long ago, and I was thrilled that she was like, well, no wonder, because I definitely, I struggle with some of that stuff. And that's my brain, and that's where the serotonin for me, and that's where I know I have to really be careful in how much external stress, and I have to figure out ways to control that, because I am addicted. I love exercising like hard.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, that's my biggest enemy to myself.
Sounds like you and I have different clients, because my clients are all like, I'm like, come on, move, let's go.
Well, I have to convince my clients
you're like, slow down.
Yeah. So today I did a stretch, and I kind of feed them these little fun things. Like I'll be like, guess what? We're going to do a 15-minute Tabata, and then we're going to stretch. And then I get the bye. And I'm like, oh, like I had you here. And now you're leaving me. But I mean, the comments I get back from that stuff is that they 100% get.
That was a fantastic conversation. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Were we frozen?
Yeah, but it was good. Anyway, I feel like that was awesome. That's exactly the conversation I wanted to have. We kind of started having it on the trail when we were hiking a couple weeks ago, which was a magnificent hike as well. Yeah. But yeah, like it just got my brain working in how much we're all figuring this out. Like I think so many different modalities now are starting to speak the same language. And even the fact that Ayurveda is starting to be a word in our culture too. I mean, it's so good. It was never part of anything that you or I would have learned growing up. So,
well, and so good because, yeah, I just think we need to, as women, we need to empower ourselves in order to help ourselves and make sure that we try to, take care of ourselves instead of trying to stress ourselves. Like, it's just, I'm trying to get people to understand, that it's not all about this over here. But at the same time, I'm feeding them it, you know what I mean? Like I'm giving them their little, like, here's your little carrot, come with me.
And I talk about that in yoga as entry point, right? Like so many people come to yoga as an entry point because they either want to become more flexible or they want to reduce stress. And so they hit a yoga class and it's beautiful because everything gives, like, if you give people an entry point and it makes this information accessible, that's what we all need. We all need to figure out our entry point into this deeper level, this deeper conversation, this deeper. So thank you for having that conversation with me today. Cause
it's
like,
awesome.
I love finding I love finding how things tag together and how they're like this. We're speaking the same, we're saying the same thing, speaking different languages.
Yeah. And I think attracting different clientele, but all want the same thing in the end.
Yes. In the end, isn't that true? We all want the same thing. So girl power. Hey, when we learn how to leash the power and wisdom of our own bodies, we'll be whole new level powerful.
Totally. They'll feel good.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for joining me, Miss Amy Johnston of Amy Johnston Fitness.
Thanks. Thanks to Novak Yoga.